Okay, guys, welcome back. And for lots of you, welcome for the first time. This is going to be one of our very, very first videos on our brand new channel, the Fraser Golf Institute. If you don't already subscribe and you're catching this for the first time, please do so. It's going to be one heck of a journey as we dive into all of the pillars of performance that we think are really meaningful in becoming a complete golfer. I'm absolutely delighted this morning to be introducing a face to the channel that you will see a lot of. We spend a lot of time together, my great friend Tyler McGhie.
Yeah,
buddy.
Yeah, good to be here. Good to be here, always.
This has been a long time coming for you and I to do more content like this. We dabbled a little bit in the past on the old channel, and we've done some speed stuff together. And to be honest, even going back and looking at the metrics, those videos they absolutely smashed it. Yeah. And that's why I know that the viewers are going to get so much from watching you and how you work, the way that you think about improvement with your clients. I've experienced it firsthand, and I can truly say it is unique in a space of people looking for conveyor belt, less and less and less, and it's not the way the Tyler McGhie thing works. Why don't just a couple of little bits just to introduce yourself and kind of what your philosophy is kind of all about.
For sure. So I've been lucky to know Ian for a while now, over 10 years, and sort of seen his journey progress. But I'm excited to share the process that I'm looking at when I'm looking at helping a player get better. So first is, what physically can you do? So what is your body able to do when you're swinging? And then what are your goals and movements that are going to match that? And then ultimately, what drills are going to help you get there? Because golf is tricky in the sense there's lots of ways to, we were talking about TrackMan, lots of ways to change the numbers, lots of ways to change the ball flight, but what's easiest for you? What's going to give you the one, you can't play golf if you're hurt, so what's going to be the safest for your body? And then golf is hard, so sometimes if you're not sure if you're doing the right drill, you can get pretty frustrated. So being clear that, hey, I'm doing the right things that are going to help me, even if it's sort of part of this process. Ultimately, want you to get as good as you can, as fast as you can, but golf is tough, so we want to make sure that you're clear, that you're going the right direction always. So that's what I'm looking at.
I love that. So we're kind of in the start of the off season. Yeah. For me, right, it's perfect weather down here in Florida. This is the start of the on season, or the peak season down here. But today we're going to create some baselines for me. We've worked really, really hard, especially I would say in the last probably 18 months. We've kind of worked on stuff over the last few years, but the last 18 months we've been consistent. Yeah. And that's been a huge, huge benefit in order to sort of ingrain the patterns that I struggle with ingraining. So why don't we kind of get into that a little bit about how we're going to create those baselines for the winter program. Ultimately, the goal for me is to become more consistent, certainly with the driver. Yeah. That's a big one. I still feel, good with irons, and other parts of the game are really coming on. Short game work we've done over the summer up at your camps at TPC Toronto were amazing. But I think, as you and I always end up going back to, for me, it's the driver and maybe what is it around sort of the driver task that's a challenge.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting. This is why golf is so fun for me to coach, because everyone's so unique, right? So for Ian, and everyone in their journey of getting better, there's some things they're going to be challenging. So I feel like a lot of the stuff we did at the start was the challenging stuff, because it's been pretty programmed in. So obviously we 3D'd, so he was really clear on the patterns, and we came up with our priorities. Hey man, every time you practice, we got to make sure that this and this are happening. And we'd even though those were the focuses, sometimes I'd check in and we'd say, oh shoot, man, you actually got to just do a bit more. It's not quite enough. Yeah. So that's the hard part. So, making sure you're clear on the program and what your main focuses are. And then for driver, it's the longest club in the bag. So someone like Ian, who tends to get a little bit ahead of it, that's going to be the most challenging club to move the needle on, because wedges, being ahead's okay. Irons usually can get away with it. Driver, if you're ahead of it, you're in a tough spot, right? So, and that's the pattern that we got to keep pushing, right? So and obviously least amount of loft, it's going the furthest. Those factors are there, but for your swing tendency, that's what I'm seeing.
Without a doubt. Yeah. Okay. Let's because we've not done this together for a while. We've not been down here at West Orange for a little bit. So why don't we, take a look, have a look at some baselines, some target related stuff, And then we can sort of, work towards sort of having a look at some drivers, creating some of those baselines and start to work at it.
I love it. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
In your mind right now, is there anything you're like cued in on or just hitting?
Backswing.
Okay.
Trying not to sort of get the early right elbow behind the rib cage.
Yeah.
Trying to be sort of mindful. To me, it feels like I'm doing, to be honest, at the minute, it feels like I'm doing that.
Okay, right.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to sort of, do that. Guys, for those of you, and it's one of the reasons that the top pillar that we have is called biomechanics and not golf swing. There's a difference between those two terms, and kind of it's important to explain, I think, a little bit about sort of movement patterns and the way the body moves and wants to move, because it's a challenge that I want to go that way with the arms and sort of get in a better sort of position from a loading perspective in my tilts. And I struggle with that anyway, but with the arms going that way, I feel like I'm going to kind of tilt into my left side. So, face on for me, when I really have to be so thoughtful. It's one of the reasons I'm so deliberate over the backswing is I'm fighting myself so hard.
Right. Because
my tendency, I want to go that way with the right elbow and get the club behind me, and I want to go that way with the sort of head tilt and the spine angle. So it's why I have such a long time to take it away.
Yeah.
It's because I'm fighting that hard.
Yeah, and that's not uncommon. Like I would say that's tilt versus turn, right?
Yeah.
So like, obviously we're going to have a blend of tilting and turning in the swing.
Mm-hmm.
So your pattern is more tilt,
yeah,
right? So that's recruiting different muscles. And this is, like been 3Ding for 13 years. So like when he's talking about biomechanics, and I've been lucky to be around some really smart guys, but you sort of have a blueprint, right? So Ian's blueprint, we know, it's not like new. It's like, he definitely, as he starts back, he wants to tilt, and that's a pretty programmed movement. So we have to be super deliberate and then coming up with drills that are gonna push him to that uncomfortable place, but we know it's a safe place. It's not like gonna hurt him or anything like that. If you're doing something that you feel pain, stop right away, because it's probably not the right direction you want to go. Obviously, pain is a good indicator that you're not moving correctly. So for Ian, we know this is a very safe movement. We know he physically can do it. It's just not patterned yet.
Right.
So we got to just keep patterning it. So that's, to me, so I look at that first swing, I think we got to 200% more.
That way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? So like do the start. We'll get right into it. So if I put a little bit of force onto the club, so you work through this force as you take it back without changing your arm position. How long can you go back without changing your right arm? Keep going. And I'll let you flex this a little. Keep going. Now finish the backswing. How are you going to get there? Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. There you go. Okay. So if I give him a little resistance, it just makes him, like, he'll know. So do one where you tilt, okay? So watch how different this feels when you tilt. So show me your bad one. Like it's like I'm not putting much force in there, but he can't move that club, right? You feel how hard that would be to move? Okay, now do the new one.
I put force into it?
Yeah, same thing. Okay. Just go right through my hand with a feeling tall as you turn. Okay, you feel where that is? And visually, does it look different?
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
your eyes
my perspective has changed. Yeah,
yeah, perfect.
For sure.
So, like for Ian, I think with a guy like him, anyone who tilts a lot at the start of the swing, I like starting with a small tee just because I want them to trust that they can move more behind the ball, right? So tilting, typically you're going to be moving forward. So I like small tees for you at the start, and then we start to build the pattern of backswing.
Right.
Okay. So show me the back, freeze the top. Okay, good. A little bit more of that. You feel it? Okay, you can hit that. Okay, what do you think? Not bad?
Pretty much down the target.
Split it in half.
Yep.
When there's no momentum in the backswing and he's able to hit it that straight, I know we're doing the right thing. It's just a matter of time until it gets comfortable, you know?
Yep. How much when people practice, Ty, like we've got TrackMan, people have different things with their practice environment. They maybe have mirrors that they can use.
Yeah.
How important is feedback in this early stage, getting that feedback in order to sort of know you're on the right track?
I mean, it's imperative. So like, I'm lucky because I get to teach a lot of players online. And over the years, I've seen things that work and things that don't work when it comes to getting players better. Because that, for me, that's what drives what I do. Like, I love watching people get better, right? Like, I want them to look better, but I also want them to perform better. So I've seen examples of players when they're at home just videoing, hitting into a net, and they feel like they're getting better, but without that ball flight feedback or the TrackMan data feedback or something like that, they'll go out and play, and there's that, I would say, like, that unconscious sort of being able to, you know, hit the shot. When they're not getting the feedback, I think it's hard to build that really deep pattern that you can trust when you play. Right? So like with TrackMan and seeing ball flight and being clear on the numbers, like Ian does a good backswing there, path 1 from the inside.
Right.
And we know, okay, 1 from the inside, we're going to be pretty good.
We're going to be okay.
Yeah, we're going to be okay. Right? So like just that feedback, and like then your brain can put a feel to that backswing. Okay, when I'm pretty close to there, that's my 1 from the inside. Right? And everyone thinks different when it comes to, like, you know, some people will think about that, or some people will just be like, oh, I loved how that ball flew. And then but anyway, we're putting that program into your mind, right?
For sure. Okay.
Let's do it again.
Same pattern.
Yeah. We'll do one more with me, and then I'll let you go. Yeah, good. You feel? Okay. You feel what I'm doing with that right wrist?
So it's interesting. That's one of the big changes. So I really feel it, because obviously getting the lead arm pinned across the chest, getting the hands too deep early, will move the right the lead wrist sort of into more of that kind of weak cup position. It's amazing how much I feel like
I know
it's there.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, I'll take a video and show you in a sec, but that's, so usually arms across. Is gonna, so the mass of the club is gonna start to go behind you, and then sometimes you'll offset that with more tilt. So I'm trying to give you everything that's gonna help you not tilt. Right? So that's what we're doing here. That last one was a 0, by the way, path-wise.
What, and again, because I just think with these early videos, what's the importance of having a path close to neutral? You know, if somebody has like a 8-degree rightward path, 8-degree leftward path. What's the value and importance of having a really neutral delivery? Well,
you know, I think it depends a little bit on the person. So like there's some people, their movement pattern will be like, hey, I can hit a pretty good draw every time. It's like, okay, like if we're looking at shooting the best score and you feel really comfortable with that shape, and it's efficient, like deliver loft is good and everything looks good, then that, you know, like maybe 5 is sort of like the high end of what you would see. But obviously the more from the inside, the more the miss you're gonna see as a push. And then if you overdo it, you're gonna start to see a hook. So when we're a little more neutral, not to say everyone's gotta be neutral, but for Ian, it's not a bad spot to be. You're just gonna see the ball, if we can be pretty good with the face, the misses are gonna be pretty close to target. But we know you play pretty good from a little from the inside, I would say. So I think I'm always, if we get you neutral, I think pushing you back to a little bit from the inside is very easy. And again, how you get path, super important, right? So it's like, for you, I'd rather you try to get more path than take away path. That's how I'm thinking.
More into out rather than
it's too far into out and us trying to take it away.
Agreed.
So that's why that backswing to me is exciting. It's like, okay, you're zeroed out there and you're not even trying to be, you know? Versus being 0 and having to work really hard for it. You try it on your own, see if you can find it. I'm gonna guide you if I need to. Awesome, give it a go. Okay, so I think the mass of the club probably needs to be a little more behind you based on that start line. So I'm saying that because I think, so he had a low pull there. Path actually was 1 left. Is that crazy or what? So I think the club tipped a little bit early for you, just because. It
felt that way.
When you tilt, you got to do that to get it to catch up.
Backswing felt great. Like it was in a really, really good spot. but it felt like I had. So if I'm pulling the club inside early, my tendency will be to throw it out in order to sort of try and offset the how inside that mass. And that's where, that's where feedback at times can also be a little bit tricky, because the measurement of the path being, maybe if I'm practicing 1 degree in to out, can mean I'm pulling it way in, coming a bit over, but at impact it's good. And you think you're on the right track, but yet you're kind of two evils kind of fighting against one another. So I think that's another part about technology that's, don't just use technology. You've got to have eyes on the technology in order to make sure, well, what it's reading is the right thing, not the wrong thing.
Oh, for sure. And I always say that, TrackMan, 3D, all that stuff is just a tool. You can't rely on it solely. It has to fit within how you're looking at getting better, know? Like what you said there was perfect. Because I always think the club it's going to work in some sort of circle. If it's over here, it's going to work this way. If we get a little bit more here, it's probably going to work a little more down.
Yeah,
probably.
Definitely. We were chatting about that before we started, and I've worked with technology. I've worked together with technology so much in the last 10 years or so, but people working at it for the first time, the value of this is evidence. Evidence of what you're doing, and then from the evidence you can build acceptance for what you need to do. And I think that's massive when it comes to technology, is that, if you're feeling something that feels so bizarrely, in the wrong, whether it's wrong or just a different place, that'll give you the evidence, though, that what you're doing is right. And that needs you to keep going down that path.
I think the learning curve gets shorter because you can build trust sooner.
Totally.
Right? So it's like, oh, that felt a little weird, but the ball looked pretty good. The number looked pretty good. I got to be pretty close to the right track. Probably that first one we did, it might have been like, wow, this feels a little different. And then you hit it. It's like, it doesn't take long to accept it after you see one that flies like right at the target,
Yep. And I'm really trying, Ty, to still feel your hand on that club.
Perfect.
I'm really trying to kind of imagine that Tyler has his hand in the club, and I'm really having to create that force. Like we're fighting one another in the sort of, the battle of moving that thing away. So I'm really trying hard to sort of get that feel. And then once I get up to the top, trying to get a little bit more flexion, a little bit more sort of bowing in that lead wrist.
Yeah, exactly. And I for you, like obviously a lot of it's going to revolve around how much this bends. So if the lead arm goes across, that trail arm is going to bend a lot. And I'm watching those demos and they're great because we're creating more width and we're getting the club in a better spot. Yeah, pretty good, man. You could have this a little more under. Pelvis under, like, there, just a little, and slightly taller with your chest. There you go, perfect. Yeah, good. Another pause, same thing. Yeah, great. Good. Add just a hint more turn to the backswing, but I loved it. And I think, like, golf is funny in the sense that the pause drill is tough. And sometimes people don't love doing it because it is so challenging, but it really gives a great feedback. You can't fake it.
No.
You're like, I'm just going to hit, and whatever happens, happens.
It's an incredible amount of trust and acceptance in the result. It's like, I don't really have any control whether this is going to be good or bad. I just have to accept that, the sort of physical makeup of the swing, the biomechanics are such that I'm just going to turn back down and try to let the athlete hit the ball.
That's right. It's like, I'm just going to hit it, and we'll see if that's the right direction, You
made a little tweak to the pelvis there, try and tuck that under.
Just
you still see a lot of people with the kind of
the
pelvis, back, and really sort of see that arch in the lower back.
Yeah, so basically the more, and this is again from really smart guys that I get to work with, so the more sort of pelvis bend I have, so anterior tilt, so tipped over, the harder it is to rotate into the hip, right? So most players, unless you're really gifted, the more bent over you are, the harder it is to turn. And most people, we need them to turn better, right? Turn better, get better stretches and stuff like that. So that's why I would just, as a small reminder for you, and I'm just looking from a balance point standpoint where Ian is there. So basically the center of his mass is in a good spot is what I'm looking at, right? So like this is the easy one, right? Like just pushing him around a little bit. Does he feel pretty solid? So that's a good way to check it. And this is, to me, like all stuff that leads to, I would say, the stuff that's a little bit more fun, you know, like being able to get a little more speed and then looking at like how it's launching and all that stuff.
It's a really good point.
Yeah.
This is kind of the boring stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, and
but it's essential.
Yeah, essential. And the thing is, like, it's the hardest for a reason, right? But if we get this baseline, 1, he's moving safe. 2, we start seeing that shot shape we're looking for.
Yeah.
I can add speed to that. Totally. I'm not worried, you know? If it looks like, oh, his movement's compromised and the ball's going all over, like, how can we add speed to that?
Yeah.
Like, that's a recipe for disaster to me, you know? Setup's awesome, man. Ball position looks good. Yeah, perfect. So give me just a little bit more ribs back. There you go, right there. You feel that? Okay. So 1 more inch of turn, same backswing feel.
So it's just like, I had a little bit of pressure in my lower back, especially when we first started. Yeah. I could really feel it in my lower back. Tucking the pelvis under and then give myself a bit more room, it like immediately just releases the tension.
That's right.
That kind of, and from a, you know, obviously a rotation standpoint, like I felt like I was struggling a little bit. Like I could really feel the tension sitting in my lower back. Yeah. And I was struggling to turn. And just sort of little shifts in sort of pelvis and sort of where the rib cage is, it literally when you said that there, it all went away. Yeah, it's
literally funny. So when when that lower back's super active and you're bent over a lot, like those are things that are going to make rotation very challenging. And it's like if you feel overactive in the lower back, and obviously there's you can overdo this, but it's like Ian's feedback there. Oh, those muscles felt more relaxed. I'm like,
just
perfect.
They just immediately like sort of switched off. If you like, yeah.
Yeah, perfect, man. Good. I might give you a little bit more here, just a little. There you go. You feel that? Perfect. 1 more inch of turn. Same stuff with the hands. Yes. Lovely. And then we'll play around a little bit with if we need that club a little more behind you, but I would say that's in the ballpark.
It was pretty good.
Yeah. It looks easy.
And in terms of practice, that would be a great place for someone to start a session, doing stuff like this, creating those foundational movement patterns before you kind of get into anything. Just set your station. Yeah. You know, some alignment sticks, making sure you're doing that. If you've got the opportunity, maybe a camera, there's so many great options now to just bring a camera and a tripod and sort of film it, get that feedback, or a mirror even. But it's important to start off doing the right things. So I feel like, if you spend an hour's worth of practice and then you look at, okay, I'll video a few at the end. Yeah. Well, you may have just wasted an hour. Well, yeah, that's the difference between like hitting balls for exercise and hitting balls to get better, right? So it's like, we start with setup because it's so important. It's going to factor into everything that you do. So the ideas, so the concepts didn't change. What you were focused on was the right thing, but then we changed the setup a little bit. Yeah. And we focused a bit more on the backswing and add the pause, and then we're like, oh shoot, now we're going the right way. Right? Versus having the right idea and still not being able to move the needle. So a lot of times with players, like, I'll make sure that they have, I'll do different challenges. You know, we've done some in the summer, that right hand only or trail hand only. Can you hit 20-yard shots with your trail hand, making sure that your pivot in that arm are matching and then you're not overusing the wrist. So it's like, it's stuff like that. If you do that for a couple months, at the start, it's like, man, I don't know if I'm ever going to get this. And then all of a sudden it clicks and it's like, okay, that's sort of a baseline starting point for you, you know? Or like shoulder to shoulder swings, a baseline sort of, or pause drill, another baseline thing to make sure you can recalibrate to where you need to be. But that was good and like very neutral from, and again, we're just using this as feedback. I'm not guiding his swing based on the numbers, but this is saying, hey, we're on the right track. Yeah, love it. You know? Absolutely love it. All right, guys, so you've seen a little bit into the way Tyler and I are going to start this off season. We're creating those baselines. It's kind of what we always do. Right. That is, I think, is the interesting part maybe to discuss. Is it's maybe not it's not the exciting lesson, but it's the important lesson. Creating that consistency is really important for you guys to establish that long-term benefit. Yeah, and I would say, like, consistency in golf is what everyone seems to be striving for. Absolutely. And if you're
practicing and you're trying to do different things every time. So obviously your input is, hey, I'm changing things all the time, versus like, hey, I'm going to stay, you know, diligent and consistent and focus on the same things for an extended period of time once you know that they're right.
Yeah.
Maybe not as exciting as trying a whole bunch of new things, but in the end result, and you shoot a lower score, and that's the exciting part. So I would say that super important to be very diligent on the easy stuff.
Yeah.
And then you can start to, you know, play around with some of the more exciting stuff that fits within your template.
Yeah. I think we were starting to get into a little bit of the nuance there around sort of body position, especially at setup. You know, you don't really talk to me too much about what my body's doing, sort of when the motion is in action. You set it all up for success prior to the club moving. And that's something that I really enjoy. And I think you guys can take a lot from that as well. Tyler's really not interrupting me anywhere, you know, shallowing this or doing sort of different parts. It's like, okay, let's set you up for success. Let's get the first part of the takeaway right. Let's kind of make a little tweak to the club position. Go ahead.
Yeah, because to me, the more force that's going into the swing, the harder it is going to be to change. So if you're someone that's like, hey, I'm going to change something right before impact, it's like, man, I don't know if you're going to be very successful. Like, you're a little late to the party when it comes to that part of the movement.
Yeah.
But setup, we can change. Start of the backswing, we can change. Eventually, you know, in transition, we can change the forces a little bit, but once it starts moving fast, it's going to be tough to make any big adjustments. So if you make those changes at address, I think it's super helpful.
Agreed. Okay, guys, hopefully this is starting to get the thoughts moving around your head a little bit in terms of, is this the way I practice? Is this the way sort of my lesson program has worked in the past? Maybe you've had a series of lessons and it's never really kind of moved you further down the line. I really think during this series, you're going to hear some things from Tyler and from some of the things we demonstrate and how we've went about trying to get a little bit better, that there's ways in which it's going to sort of guarantee success, guarantee to unlock sort of a new consistency within your game. So hopefully that's resonating with a bunch of you right now. Stay tuned for the rest of the sort of series on this as we establish the winter baselines, the off-season baselines that are going to lead to the success down the line. And next spring, it's amazing to think that already we're talking about this is work for 6 months down the line, but you've got to build a house brick by brick.
That's it. And sometimes it's hard to be aware of your improvements when you're in it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, but when you look back over a couple months, you'll say, geez, man, I can't believe it looks so different. It doesn't feel that different now, but it looks so different in the shot shape, and hopefully scoring is a lot better.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
All right, guys, hope you enjoyed this. Lots more to come. Stay tuned for more.